Hey everybody, welcome back to the Personal Transformation Podcast. My name is Dan Story. I'm the author of the book Personal Transformation Blueprint, and today I'm joined by Betsy Pepine. Now, Betsy is a legend in the world of real estate. She's a broker, but more importantly for us today is she's a new author, and she's going to be talking to us about the stories behind her new book, which is called Breaking Boxes. So Betsy, great to have you on the show, and welcome.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Happy to be here.
So one of the topics that often we kind of find with people is this expectation that life is a little bit more, could be more, right? We, look at other people, we're bombarded with social media, and we see in all of the filters and kind of special effects that everybody else is doing all of these amazing, exciting things. They're constantly on holiday, they're eating at the best restaurants, they've got a new car. And then suddenly I look at myself and I'm like, oh, what happened? How did I get to this point where I want all of those things, but I kind of feel like I'm stuck? And you've written this book, Breaking Boxes. It sounds as though that we self-impose some of these things upon us, or at least through psychology. So can you give us an intro? What is Breaking Boxes about for you, and how did you come up with this concept?
Breaking boxes to me is getting out of the constraints and limitations that other people, society, religions, our peer group, our roles in life, ourselves put on us, and breaking out of those to live a more authentic and fulfilling life. That's what breaking boxes means to me. And the inspiration came from, it's interesting you just said that about being all that shiny candy on social media, because I had all that. And I hit midlife and in my 40s, and I checked off all the boxes that I thought would make me feel successful and fulfilled and thus happy, but I wasn't happy. And through a journey that took several years of therapy, journaling, meditation, yoga, bioenergetics work, and a host of other modalities, coming to the realization that I had lost my way. I found this, I was scrolling through social media one day and I found this picture of this girl. It's a young girl who looks to be the age of about 4. And she's in a bathing suit on her front lawn on lush green grass, and in a bathing suit, smiling, pure unbridled joy, looking up, rain pouring down on her. And in the middle of the picture, it says, "Remember her. She's still there inside you, waiting. Let's go get her."
Yeah.
And I was so drawn to her. I printed the picture out. I sent it to a company and they put it on canvas for me. I have it in my home. I have it in my office at work. It's my screensaver on my phone. I wanted that. And about a year later, we live in Florida. We've got hurricanes in Florida. Hunker down for a hurricane, and always have a project. And the project for that hurricane was putting photos into photo albums. And sure enough, 2 or 3 hours into the storm, the lights go out. I light the candles, get out my photos, and start putting them into photo albums. And then I'm finished. I come to the end of the 3rd box, done, go to the trash can to put the boxes away, and see that there's a photo that's downturned on the bottom of the last box. And I pull the photo out and I can't see it. So I take it over to the candle and I look at the photo. And I tell people it was like a bolt of lightning went through me. And it wasn't from the storm outside. I ran to my office with the candle, with my photo in hand, and I put it up to this photo. And I look back at the photo in my hand and I see a picture of a girl in the ocean in her favorite red striped bathing suit, 3 feet in front of her father, who's taken a picture of her, and she's kind of jumping over a wave as if to hug it. And on the bottom of that photo, it was in my mother's handwriting. It said Betsy, aged 4. And I thought, that's it. Like, I was that girl that I had surrounding, and this is something that I wanted in my life. And it's, where did that girl go? And how did she lose her way? And so then I began this journey, and what the thread through it all was the detours in my life came when I felt confined by these boxes and being frustrated, feeling that I couldn't either wasn't aware of the boxes, couldn't get out of the boxes, frustrated that they were being imposed on me, that I imposed them on myself. And when I was most free, it was when I released myself from those boxes. And so then I wrote the book, because as I was journaling, I saw this common theme. And when I shared my stories with people, they seemed to be the boxes are universal. And there was various degrees of awareness by others of their own boxes. And I thought, gosh, if I could just help one person with this book, it will have been worth writing. And so that's where the inspiration came from.
That's awesome. And I'm listening to this now with two ears. Obviously, I have two ears, but I have a 4-year-old daughter, daily, as a reflection of exactly what you're talking about. And welcome to the journey, by the way. By the journey, I mean this whole learning about modalities and psychology and all of these things. It's a kind of crazy world, but the more you look, the more interesting it becomes. So I'm excited for you as you kind of continue and educate others as to start this journey as well. But as a parent, as a dad, I'm hyper aware now of this situation. I have a moldable psychology in front of me that just happens to be housed in a little 4-year-old girl. And everything that I'm trying to do is stuck between one of two camps. And one is exactly what you're talking about. And that is raising a creative, free, inspirational, kind of no limits child. Like I would love one of those. I'd love her to kind of wake up like every day and go and jump into the water, exactly like that picture. And at the same time, I also like her to be well behaved and do the things we do, and behave, like pack your bags and tidy things up and all those kind of things. And so I'm also aware that sometimes I'm like, Lily, do this, Lily, do that. So it's a funny dichotomy that I think that we have inside of us, this, and you're right, we all have this voice that says, hey, remember me, I'm still here, and we kind of mute it. But also all of these pressures, even from well-meaning people like our parents, that kind of squeeze these like boxes around us from such an early age. So you talked about your experience and kind of that picture waking things up. What were some of the boxes that you immediately became aware of? Were there some that you immediately thought, oh my goodness, this is something that's held me back or pushed me in the wrong direction? What were those for you?
The biggest one early on was, so family of origin plays a big impact, in our development. And in the family that I was raised in, by loving, well-meaning parents, they thought what was best for me and my sisters was to be a physician. That's what my father was. We all three grew up working in the hospital alongside my father. And that was the path to freedom, financial success, stability, which is, they didn't have that growing up. They were second generation immigrants through Ellis Island. So that's what they just knew that to be the model. And so I grew up thinking that was what I needed to be. And it was very difficult for me. Both of my sisters ended up being physicians. They married physicians, and I was pre-med, and I decided to get changed from pre-med to a business track. So I did that, but I wasn't cognizant of the boxes. I did it, and I felt the repercussions. I definitely felt like the black sheep in the family. I felt less than. It was very difficult. And then I think I straddled it because I stayed in the healthcare industry. I ended up getting an MBA, but I got 2 concentrations, one in marketing for myself and one in healthcare management. And I went into healthcare for a decade. I think to appease kind of that voice in my head that said, I need to be in healthcare. And so it was only after a decade in healthcare, and I was faced with I was 32, and I was suddenly single with a 1 and 2 year old daughters. And that's when it was like, you know what, the universe, God, source, whatever you choose to believe in, is telling me that there's got to be a different way and a different path. And when I moved back to Florida to raise my girls near family, there was no pharmaceutical industry that's where I was in. So that was like a relief because I didn't have that choice. And it's like, how am I going to reinvent myself? And now I'm going to say yes to myself. I look back at that, recognizing that as a box. At the time, I didn't understand that box and what a significant impact it had on my psyche at the time. But that would be probably the biggest box that I had to overcome in my mind. But there's been various others. I mean, and we all, the good mom box. What's it mean to be a good mom? You talked about raising your children and wanting to have your daughter and wanting her to have the freedom. I remember when I decided I'm going to pick my battles, and one battle that it was not interesting to me was what they wore. And so my children wore what they dressed themselves from the time that they could dress themselves. And my younger daughter, Elena, loves fashion. And to this day, I mean, she is an expert seamstress, but she would wear whatever she wanted. The clothes did not match. It could have been pajamas going to school. Sometimes she's wearing a formal, like her, really dressy stuff to school, costumes to school, shoes on the wrong feet. It didn't matter, but she was so proud that she chose that outfit that I let her wear what she wanted. And I got a lot of strange looks like, really, Betsy, you let her go out in that? But I did, because, so I said that good mom box, because at times I questioned, am I really a good mom by doing this? But now looking back, and believe me, I made tons of mistakes too, but that's one thing I did. I felt like I did what was best for her, even though I definitely felt judged by a lot of people. I went against, okay, whether people put me in the good mom box or not, it's worth it to me, because what I want in the long term is a confident child. And I felt that would get me that. And so I forsake the label. I don't know if that's a word, but I didn't want the label. I had to pass on the label of being the good mom because I wanted her to be a confident child.
It's funny, isn't it? We often change our behavior or moderate our behavior on the expectations of other people, not because we don't want to do it, but because we're worried about what other people think. I saw a video the other day of a woman. She's on a treadmill, right? And she has one hand on the side of the treadmill. She's kind of leaning forwards, like almost falling over, and she's running on the treadmill. And you look at someone like that, you think, you're crazy. Like, why are you running on the treadmill like that? And then it changes scene, and you see her, she's doing the luge in the Olympics. And it's crazy, right? Because people would look and think, well, why are you doing that? Like, why are you doing that? And they don't see what they're building. They don't, like, for you, it's like they're judging you because of your daughter, and they don't see what you're trying to build. They only see the moment. So I think that's really interesting. And so how did you overcome that? Like, what did you have to say to yourself? Did you have to kind of ignore everyone? Did you put headphones on? Did you kind of smile and wave? Like, what was your approach to when parents looked to you and Betsy?
Well, so what happened, it was a critical moment was when my older daughter was in first grade. And I was always like that with the clothing. I recognized early on, I didn't care what people thought. I knew that that's not something that was important to me. But what I did do was I was that parent who I knew when every test was going to happen, the homework was perfect. The lunches were perfect. If they left homework on the counter, if they left their lunch on the counter, I drove it into school. Because I wanted, in my mind, I wanted to set them up for success. And then, so one day Maria had this project. It was her first big project, first grade, picked a person. She picked Rosa Parks, big project, poster boards, glue, everything. And I literally spent the weekend laying out the poster board, drawing the lines, had everything perfect. And then Maria came and I'm like, okay, now, and she had nice handwriting. So I said, okay, draw, this is the title. It goes here, straight line. And then I erased the line I had drawn so you couldn't see it. I told her where to paste here's the glue stick, Maria, put it here. And then she put it there. The poster looked perfect, right? We take it into school on Monday and kids walking by us, and these posters are torn, beat up. I mean, it looked like the dog ate it. you know, handwriting was sloping down like a mountain. And I was sitting there thinking, gosh, why would parents allow this? You know, what are they doing? You know, we go into the classroom, these kids in a line, standing up there from waiting to show Mrs. Walton, their faces are beaming with pride that this is something they did on their own. And I looked at Maria and she wasn't beaming, and she shouldn't have been. I did that work. You know, this poster looked like an adult did it because an adult did it.
Yeah.
And I was mortified by my own behavior, mortified that I had judged these other moms, you know, I really did. And I got back in the car in tears and I'm like, I am stopping this. This is insane. And when I got real with myself, like, I was doing it because I wanted that teacher to feel like, and I think I was a little bit guarded because I was a single mom. I didn't want the teacher to think she's coming, you know, didn't have the parental oversight, you know, because I'm too busy working. I wanted her, I was more worried about what that teacher thought of me and less concerned about what did I want for the long-term future of my daughter. So that night, I literally went cold turkey. I stopped everything. And I didn't take, if they left the lunch on the counter, I said, the school nurse called one day, Maria left the lunch on the counter. She'll figure it out. And I know I got some raised eyes for that, but now they're 25 and 26. And I remember one of them called me and they're talking about a problem. And I said, well, what are you going to do about that? And she's like, I don't know, Mom, but I'll figure it out. And it was, you know, it was music to my ears because that's what I wanted. I wanted daughters who knew they could figure it out on their own.
You don't give them what they want, but you give them the ability to figure it out, right? You don't make a decision for them. You teach them how to make a good decision, right, and get out of the way. Right. And even good decision, right, is...
Sorry, I know. I know.
Oh, man, it's tough. So, and obviously the teacher, she'd obviously pre-sent you an email saying, hey, Betsy, these are all the things I'm already judging you on. So if you can just make these perfect. Right? But we create these things in our mind to think, oh, people must be thinking this, people must be thinking that. And then the reality is they're all just worried about their own stuff, trying to figure it out. Right. So we do give other people's thoughts and attention a little bit too much. We over-index on it a little bit. So, okay, let's turn it back to your career then. So, you've obviously, like you said, you've made it to be successful. Or define the success. You had all the shiny, glitzy, glamour things. What's your definition of success now? How has it changed from kind of that point, and how would you define success now?
So, for me, it's everybody has, we call it in the coaching program I'm in, a unique ability. We all have an innate unique ability. Doesn't matter in what industry you're in, that unique ability, where you flow the most. And it's something that comes naturally for you, that you absolutely love to do. And it does benefit the world because you do it naturally better than most. If you are working in your unique ability, improving and empowering the lives of others. So in any moment, so somebody else's presence has been enhanced because you are there. That to me is success. And that's a successful life.
So I guess one of the challenges, and when I speak to people, and I've got somebody that I'm working with at the moment, he's trying to figure out the next career step. And you could say he's middle age-ish. He's in that kind of I think in the book I talk about stagnation versus generation. We're at that point where do we just settle and be happy with what we are? Do we still got a bit of energy for another push? So he's in that, but trying to figure out what that looks like for him is a challenge. He knows all the things he doesn't want. He knows all the mistakes he's made. He can look back and say, nah, I don't want any of those things anymore. But kind of looking forward is more challenging. It's like, you know, I don't know what it is. It becomes ethereal. It's difficult to define all of these. We have unlimited potential, and so we kind of get overwhelmed by all the choice. So it's really difficult to kind of focus in. So what's your advice when you talk about that, kind of finding your unique superpower or your ability that you can step into that's uniquely you? How do you guide people? What are the things that you suggest to people for helping them find it?
Mhm. So, what I suggest is that an exercise that really helps me, and I'm sure you probably do this, is you write the future letter, like yourself in 20 years or yourself in 10 years, and you write yourself a letter as though you're there. You know, this is what's happened. This is what my life like. I'm in this environment. People are calling me these, grandpa or whatever you want in your life. Um, mentor, entrepreneur, but you in very finite detail what it is you want your life to be like in 10, 20 years. I think 10 is good, 20 is even better. Um, and that's a start. That's a hint at where is there a gap between what you're looking at now, your reality now, and where you truly want your life to be, your environment to be, the people around you, who are they in 10 or 20 years. The other thing I think that really helps is in our businesses, we spend so much time, or at least I do, focused on the vision, the core values, and then we break it down into goals and 10-year goal, 5-year goal, 3-year goal, 1-year goal, and then quarterly. How many of us go home and create the vision statement, the mission, and the core values for ourselves or for our families?
Mhm.
Do your children know what your core values are as a family? Most families would probably say no. Yet I think everybody would say family is much more important than work. And we do all of that for work, but we don't do any of that for family, for ourselves. So that's it's simple, but it can also be a little complex because it's such a mind shift. But doing that will help, I think, reduce all of the options. Once you have your basic core values down, I think it helps narrow down the choices. And then the third thing that I would recommend if your clients haven't done it, I find them immensely valuable, are the, strength finders, unique ability tests, the I mean, there's DISC, I mean, a whole bunch of different assessments. Print is a good one, Myers-Briggs, but all of those assessments to help you understand who you are, like un un almost like unclothed. You know what I mean? It's who you are naturally. And because why work against it? Work in your unique ability, work in your strengths. So I think those three exercises would help a client get a little bit more focused on what their future could hold.
It is, when you say it like that, it's crazy, right? And I've been in sales for a very long time, trained salespeople kind of all around the world, and yeah, every quarter we get given our goals, and we go back like, oh, okay, here we go, this quarter, this is the number we got to hit, and yet, like you say, when it comes to our own personal goals and what we challenge ourselves, maybe we do it once a year,
Mhm.
maybe we set ourselves a little challenge at New Year's,
Mhm.
and then we get to a point in life and we haven't lived all those years. We've lived the same year or same period just over and over again, and
Right.
reinforce the status quo a little bit. Okay, so yeah, so it's interesting. Let's start with that, and I like that contrast, the letter from yourself. I've tried that, and it's a powerful exercise because it does, if you let it, it does shine a light on kind of the big challenges. How did you find this calling? Like, obviously, from seeing the picture to realizing there was a challenge to writing a book, how did you know that writing a book was part of your calling?
You know, probably two things. One is it just can't. I mean, I just felt it. It was almost like somebody said, "Oh, you birthed the book," and that's what it felt like. It was coming out. Like, I remember when I was having delivery, I'm like, they said, "No, don't push." I'm like, "She's coming," and that's what it felt like. It was a force that it's like I had to get it out. And I haven't, not many things impact me in such a way. Like I know, like this knowing, and that was just like, that is knowing. The other thing, which is always a sign that I need to move in that direction, is it scared the heck out of me
Mhm.
because I'm a very private person. I'm an introvert, and to be this vulnerable in such a public way was very scary. But I know myself. I'm most comfortable outside my comfort zone,
Yeah.
and so I knew that was then I definitely had to do it. If I wasn't scared, I probably wouldn't have done it. But because it scared me so much, that just made it all the more motivating to do it.
It sounds like it would have been more work to keep the book in than to.
Yes, no, truly.
How do you get to that point now? Because obviously you've challenged yourself. How do you get to a point where you have that relationship with your comfort zone? Most people look at the edge of their comfort zone and stay well back. You know, it's like you're going up to a very tall building and looking over the edge. I don't do that. I don't get fights. And I live in New York and there's all these high-rise buildings. So I'm like, I'll just look at them from down here. Thank you very much. I'm not going to the edge. So, you know, I know where I feel comfortable, but you kind of go to the edge and you look over it and you're like, oh, what's over there? How did you develop that? How did you develop that? I don't know whether it's confidence or craziness. You kind of tell me, but how did you get to the point where you were comfortable pushing yourself so much with the edge?
I think it's definitely, I wasn't born with it, but I definitely think it's a attribute that's grown over time. I'm such a curious person and I look at everything as a learning. And so I really don't, I think people are limited because they have fear. And I have fear, but it's very short-lived, because the minute I have it, I'm like, okay, what is this teaching me? And then the scariness goes away. I was in court a month ago. Somebody sued me. You know, that was scary. Never been sued in my life. And for a week, the jury's listening to stuff, and it was very uncomfortable. But every day I said, you know what? The universe is trying to tell me something. I need this experience. Things are happening for me, not to me. What can I learn? And it just flips the switch inside. So there's no failure. It was a learning. The worst case, I lose, but I learned I had a great experience. So I'd be ready for someone if they sue me again. Right. So I think once you realize you can't fail, there's just no definition of failure, because the worst case is you learned a great lesson. So to me, that's a win. Why wouldn't you want to rack those up?
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, the more I think about it, and, you know, I got sued once years ago, so it teaches you resilience. Plus, you find out how much Latin words cost. If you've ever been sued and had to send a letter back, the more Latin words, the better. But it builds resilience, right? And we can't get through life without resilience. We cannot avoid things happening to us, like adversity, challenge, failure. It's gonna come. Like whether that's personally, whether it's in your family, something bad is gonna happen. And when we meet those events, the question is how we deal with them. And like you say, so you've been sued. So what? Like what happened? You know, maybe cost some money and a bit of time and stuff, but it's a cool story. Like, let's over it. How do we not try and get into this situation before next time? But we learn from it and we move forwards. And I think that's the thing, is people think that they've got to have the confidence and the courage before they get going. It's like, no, you're going to pick that up along the way. You're going to pick up some bruises. Like my daughter comes home from school and she's got bruises on her knees and scratches on her arms. Like, how'd you get that? Like, were you going fast? That's cool then. It's okay. It's just you pick it up. So, okay, well, let's turn to the book a little bit, because I know you said this is coming out very soon. Who should read the book? Like, describe the person who needs to read this book, Breaking Boxes.
Well, the boxes are universal. You know, these are boxes based on the roles we play in our life, whether you're, you know, father, mother, daughter, son, husband, wife, single, married, divorced, widowed. I mean, just they're everywhere. The religious boxes, you know, your religion can put you in a box. There's just so many. So it is universal. I think if you're already aware of that and you feel like you're impervious to it and these boxes don't impact you, great. On the other extreme, if you feel like you're, and I don't know if you know this reference because you're from London, but you feel like Jim Carrey in The Truman Show. Did you see that movie?
Oh, I know that movie.
Okay. So you think you're living this ordinary life, but you're oblivious to the fact that it's on a set orchestrated by others?
Yep.
That person would get a lot out of this book. Or you're Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, you know, and you're like wondering why every day feels the same. And are there other options out there that could make you feel more fulfilled?
Yeah. The example I give is Ryan Reynolds in Free Guy. I don't know if you've seen that
I
movie.
haven't seen that. What is it? Freedom?
So Free Guy. He's a computer character. He's a non-playing character in a simulation, online simulation. And
Okay.
he's generated by AI, right? And he kind of just goes around. Like, you imagine playing a game, and he's a banker. He goes into the bank and he just does this meaningless thing because he's a background character in this game. So he doesn't actually have anything to do, and he just kind of has the same routine every day. And he doesn't realize actually there's some AI powering him that's kind of snuck in from some other computer program.
Yeah.
And then something triggers him to go, oh, I could do something different. And for him, it's just he changes his coffee. Like, that's it. And that's such a big thing. Anyway, hilarity ensues. But it's that kind of idea, right? Is that we're just drifting, and the routine is the same, and it seems like there could be more or should be more, but we're not able to experience it until, like you say, something triggers. For you, it was the photo of the little girl, right? That just kind of said, hey, come on, remember this. For me, it was a photo as well. I looked to myself on a family trip to the beach, and I saw this photo, and I didn't see me. I mean, I did, but what I saw was somebody who had accepted excuses and wasn't fulfilling all the things he talked about, but was just kind of telling other people what they should be doing. And that, for some reason, this picture triggered that in me, and I ran out of excuses literally in that moment, and had to get about it. You mentioned some of the kind of the boxes there, and kind of the hats that we wear in life. What are some of the biggest restrictions? Like, and you obviously have, I think you said you have teams of people working with you in business. What are some of the biggest restrictions that you see? You talked about limiting beliefs, you talked about these boxes. What are the most, I guess, detrimental ones? What are the ones that harm people's progress the most, do you think?
I think it's a more general one of, they have a ceiling on what I see in my business. They have a ceiling on what they view as their success level. And I don't know why, especially in the industry we're in real estate. I mean, there's the sky is the limit, but they have this, and everyone's number's different, but it's like, well, I'm not that. I'm not a $5 million producer. I'm not a $10 million producer. I'm not a $20 million producer. And that, I think, is the biggest thing. I don't know where that comes from. I mean, clearly from the messaging that they perceived throughout their life. But I think that's the biggest ceiling that I see people in my industry make, is they just assume that even though they see all these other people doing it, they're not of that caliber.
And how does that impact? Because, and so here, genuine question, because I remember years ago working with an advertising sales company. We had, again, similar situations as the big producers. You got the medium ones, but the guys in the middle, and I'm thinking of one person in very particular, had a decent book of business, and it was comfortable, and it wasn't too high. He was never kind of setting the records like anything like that, but it also wasn't so low that it was detrimental to the company. He was in that kind of middle spot, which is, don't have to do too much work, and I get enough, and I'm comfortable. And he stayed there, but the management were like, you need to work harder. And he got a lot of grief for it. So how, knowing what you know about boxes, knowing what you know about limitations, how do you manage those middle performers? What encouragement or what questions do you ask them to get them to reevaluate?
Well, I do think that that's fine. I think if they're content there, and they feel that what they'll have to give up is not worth the additional income that might generate, that's a very logical choice. So I'm not the type who will always push somebody. I mean, if that's not what they want, they truly want, and I think it's great that they know what they want and that they can juggle both, and they're very happy. It's if they're not happy with their level of performance, but they're not willing to put in the extra. You weren't happy where you were when you saw that picture. But if they're truly content, there's nothing wrong with being a mediocre salesperson. Like we talk about in our company, it's really important for me that people that work for me have life, I call them life pillars, 6 to 8 solid things that they that are valuable to them in their life. It could be, and career is just one of them. So career, faith, friends and family, maybe a hobby, giving back, growing. It could be travel. I mean, whatever is important to you. 6 to 8 to me seems to be the sweet spot in terms of having a balanced, well, fulfilling life. And I came to this, because when I found myself 32 and suddenly single, at the time I had 3 pillars in my life. I had my marriage, my job, and my kids. And within a very short period of time, my marriage and my job disappeared. And when you're sitting on a 3-legged stool and 2 go out, you're on the floor.
Yeah.
And I was, and I said to myself, I will never be in this position again. And I created, then I went through, learning and reading incessantly on how do you build a life? Because I really felt like I had to truly build from the foundation up. So if that person who's kind of coasting in their career, that may be fine if all the other pillars are so strong, and that's important. So I'd have to discern if that's even a problem. But if they want to improve in that pillar of their life, I'm a huge fan of mentors. I'm very visual. I'm very much, if I see somebody doing it, then that's just like, okay, then I can do it. And so I would encourage them, help them find mentors that, I like having 2 types. I like having people that are just a couple steps ahead of me, but then people who are way ahead of me. So I don't want to be so unmotivated. Like if somebody's so far ahead of me, I'm like, oh, that's not obtainable right now. So that's why I like to have 2, like what's big picture or, pie in the sky. And then who's somebody just a couple steps ahead of me that I can follow, learn from, emulate. So that's what I would do with that type of person.
It's a bit more realistic, isn't it? When they're just a couple of steps ahead, it's like, I can do that. I can do that next step. And be like,
Right.
Oh, I can do that next step. Well, you mentioned mentors. We have a relatively well-known mentor, I think. So do you want to tell us about that relationship, how it came about, and what have been some of the key lessons that you've learned through that relationship that you don't think you would have learned alone?
Oh my gosh. So it came about because I had an agency up in New York that was helping me purchase my media, my television and radio. That person in New York knows Barbara. And so that's how it came about. Luck, truly luck. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I'm like, I'm in. And so, but what Barbara's done for me, being female, she's female. She was in the real estate space, did really well. She got divorced. She tells the story. Her husband took the company. She rebuilt from the ground up again, created another very successful real estate enterprise, and then sold that. Then what is most inspiring to me is she reinvented herself. She used to only be known for real estate, but she wanted to become known as an entrepreneur. And so she did a variety of things to do that. And so that's my mentor, not for real estate, but for being a female entrepreneur who rebranded herself. And she did it at a middle to later in life. She's in her mid-70s right now, and she's killing it. You don't see many people in their mid-70s killing it in the space that she's in. So just a true inspiration. And she's so humble and real. You see her, in life she is too, but on social, like she's just real. So to me, that means that's obtainable, right? So that's what mentors give me, or just confidence that if she can do it, I can too.
Yeah. And if you're listening, we're talking about Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank. And I did a quick look at she's now invested, I think it's about 130 at the time of whenever I was reading it, different businesses. So making that pivot from, like you say, single focus, all about real estate, to now be obviously very well recognized and respected as an entrepreneur, and making that shift. And like you said, that's a 20-year shift. That's that. I'm writing that letter back to myself. Hey, Barbara, this is you from 20 years time. Thanks for doing all of these things. By the way, it wasn't easy, but you did it. Like that kind of. What was there one? Can you put your finger on one lesson that you needed to hear at the exact moment that she just said something or did something, or even just a word of encouragement that allowed you to break one of the boxes that was getting in your way?
Well, she tells the story where she really wanted to be on Shark Tank, and that really shifted the public's mindset of Barbara. So she got the interview, the slot. Well, then 2 or 3 days before she's supposed to fly out, the producer emailed her and said, we no longer need you. So she writes this letter that said, basically, I'm being stood up for the prom. And she outlines to the producer why it would behoove them to let her at least come and interview her, and how, because they said they only needed one female. And she said, and you need 2 females on your show, not just one. And they brought her in. They originally they said no. Then they bring her in. She killed it on the interview, and now she's on the show. So I tell my agents, no is not a no, right? It's not. It's no, not now. No, not this second. But that's all it means, is that's it. The door's open. And I love that story. And had she not, that was just, that catapulted her into the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
And because she had the courage to say, wait a minute.
Yeah. I love, and what you've done there, you've actually said, obviously, we have our own boxes that we need to break through, but other people's boxes are there as well. And, so the producers on that show have obviously got, oh, we need one woman. This is the box that we live in. And actually, let me just knock on your preconceptions and things like, what?
Right.
We all have boxes. We all have them. And they're not even there. This is the crazy thing. Like, we think they're a physical thing and we talk about them as if they're actually real things, but they're just a concept of imagination that stops us at a certain point. It's madness.
I tell people, so I'm in real estate, right? So I see buyers and sellers box up their stuff all the time, ship it across the city, state, country. And you cross the pond. And but we forget they're designed to be broken down, flattened, and taken to the curb. They're not permanent. And it's also interesting to me, these are human constructs. Yeah. We're the only humans, or the only animal species that deals with these things. You don't see other species in the animal kingdom wondering about the boxes that they're in. You just don't. It's ridiculous.
I love what you said there. And I don't know if you realize how profound it is, but like you say, boxes are there for a purpose. They're there for moving something from one point to another, and then they lose their function.
Yeah.
Right. So, like you said, and we were talking before this, is, we place limitations. And actually now going back to the conversation about my daughter, for now, I need to put a box around her because she needs safety and protection because she's 4 years old, but she doesn't need that for the next 100 years. At some point, I need to, like you did, is take that safety box away, move it to the side, flatten it down, put it in the recycling, and look and say, okay, well, do we need any more boxes? Okay, there's a different box. I'm going to use that for now.
Yeah.
But like you say, is getting rid of that box and thanking it for its service.
Exactly. Instead, we overstay our welcome in them.
Right. This is Betsy. Thank you for the stories about Barbara. That's really genuinely interesting, and thanks for sharing. And I love the impact it's had on you. And I think we all need mentors. And I like the definition you had, a distinction between the aspirational mentor that has the big life lessons versus that one who's just a couple of steps down the path, who can say, oh, actually, I did this bit here, just try that, and kind of give you a bit more tactical view. Let's just jump back to the book, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm keen just to kind of get some of the tidbits out there. If you think back to writing a book or birthing the book, as you talked about, what's the one bit in it that you are most proud of? Is there one element of the book where you think, this is where, like, I'm really most proud of my writing?
Well, I'm most proud that I was so vulnerable in the book. I'm so open about the mistakes I've made, my humanness. I think that we go through this world oftentimes not sharing that and pretending, and it's a disservice to everybody. So I'm most proud of that. And that it literally took me 1 month. So the book was done, and my publisher kept saying, do I have your final approval? And it took me 1 month to push the submit button because I was scared to death. So I think that's what I'm most proud of. But in terms of lessons, it's just, I think readers will come away. They will think about things differently. There's so many things in our lives that we see every day We do not even question. But I do believe after reading this, you will start questioning a lot more.
That's beautiful. And like you say, looking at boxes and questioning their functionality, wondering how long they've been there, and hopefully wondering whether we need to have them moving forwards or not, or if we can just let them go and flatten them down.
Yeah.
Betsy, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and thanks for opening my eyes as to limitations. Thanks for opening my eyes to thinking about how I interact with my daughter. Like I said, this is such a hyper awareness thing, but also now thinking back to all of the boxes that I've kind of lived in, and how can I get rid of them? How can I push my own boundaries? Might not step onto the top of the tallest buildings look over the edge yet, but maybe at some point one day. Listeners are going to be keen to figure out how they can break their own boxes. So what's the best way for them to get hold of you or find the book?
Yes. So my website, betsypepine.com, it's just my name. You can sign up for my newsletter there, and there is a button to order the book, but it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, and it'll be on come Monday on all the major sites wherever you buy books.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your stories, for sharing, again, your vulnerability here and in the book as well. And if you are listening and you feel that need to kind of push the extremities of your experience, then I suggest you get a copy of the book. Betsy, thanks again, and look forward to speaking again soon.